Yeah, hi there. This is tuxocher.com again. Welcome on my video channel. Around the same time last year, I introduced you to a program called RapidRAW. And at this time, this was a program or app which was hyped sort of as a Lightroom clone on all YouTube channels. I showed you the program and it was very impressive in a time of 4 weeks or so what the developer did in this 4 or 6 weeks from first development, which I introduced you last year. RapidRAW wasn't a Lightroom clone at this time, and spoiler on, it's not a Lightroom clone right now, but it has made a good development with new features like collections and even HDR, panorama setting, and so on and so forth. So we just might take a closer look. Okay, I started RapidRAW here, and first we go into the settings. And here you might notice that is one of the new features that you can change the language, as you can see here. Okay, we leave it that way and go to this one. And here you can continue the session. So I read in a folder, and maybe you notice here there's a second folder, so you're not restricted to one base folder. You can do that with a couple of folders. You see here that you can here add a folder, so you're not restricted to one base folder. But even though I set to display mode to recursive, like you can see here, in this folder, the application does a line or separation between each folder. I would rather prefer that it might implement a setting or a display mode where you just like in Lightroom have just the images without looking for in what folder they are stored in. Maybe you could do a representation which folder you are in, like here a different color in those folder or something else for the implementation. Okay, let's go here in the first one for first example. It takes a little bit so you can read in the raw image, because I guess the for the grid view you RapidRAW just use the embedded thumbnails, and here we can make the basic adjustment like you see here. There is a sort of automatic setting which usually is a little bit too bright, so we set that back. Okay, the shadows could leave them that way. And then you got here the presence, vibrance, saturation, and so you got a color grading. You could even turn the highlights a little bit more towards the red, because it's a artificial light setting here, just as you like. And here down on those settings, you got sharpening and noise reduction. If your image was shot at a high ISO setting, you could use that too. Let's take another example, which is pretty neat so far. As you could see here, we got here a couple of images. What you could do now is under productivity, I don't know why that is here, you could even stitch those images to a panorama. I wouldn't do that right now because I had 2 times that my MacBook totally crashes, even though those images are just from the Lumix S9 with 24 megapixel. That will result in images like 32 megabytes, and that shouldn't be that much for a total crash. Okay, let's look at another example. Maybe we take here that church, like that one. Okay, it takes a little second before the image is read in, like that, like right now. And if you do here go to the crop, you have now the opportunity to transform the image, which means you could straighten up at like this here, the building, to reduce the effect of a typical wide angle shot where you didn't level the camera perfectly. We do that a little bit here. We do vertical like that. That should be enough. You don't get it completely. Here I would wish that this separate window could be enlarged a little bit. But okay, maybe that's will find its way in the next implementation. Okay, click apply. And then of course you have to crop the image to get rid of those black areas here. That works pretty good, like so. Okay. And then the main thing I think is when you go, let's take for that one, okay, go to the mask, and then we hit the sky mask automatically. And here you can see that the mask isn't far away from being perfect. I wouldn't even do any settings here because it wouldn't go here for that image. So you had to new component and try it with the brush. Oh no, here. Take a brush like so, and now I could add those areas here to the sky masking to make it a little bit better. That's the setting here. Maybe I'll do the brush size a little bit more, and then I could repair this brush again. I wouldn't do that for that here. That will take too much time for the demonstration. Let's go to another example. Maybe we go to, yeah, let's go to that one. Maybe I could show you the brush again or the sky mask again, which sometimes works pretty good. Reset this image. Okay. And here you can see that this mask is a lot better than the other one. And now we could do a shift here in exposure, and in the highlights, go that and go to the regular image processing and open up the shadows a little bit, like so, to get out the details here in the building and of course here in this place. Okay, we have the basic raw processing, we have leveling and cropping the images. You could now export those images like here with this setting. There are certain presets which you could define yourself for high quality and so on and so forth. Those in the upper line here, JPEG, PNG, and TIFF file were already in the last implementation I showed you. New are those here, WebP format, JPEG XL, and the EVO format. What you could do now is reduce or set the longest edge, or if you want, you can do it with the short edge or in absolute figures for wide and so on. But what's pretty interesting, you could do now, set this to 12,000 and do upscale with the image. If you don't set this setting here, don't enlarge, then you get an image which is 12,000 by 8,000 pixel. We do a reset. Then we go, for example, here on this one. That is image 310. And now we go to Lightroom 310, like so. And if you take a look, and that in Lightroom it isn't processed at all, just like the image in RapidRAW. And if you go back here, that is at least one exposure value darker than the image in Lightroom without doing any image processing at all. And there's another thing I want to show you. Therefore, we have to go to that one here. Let's take, for example, that one here. No, we got a little better. Take the 357. Okay, as you can see here, that was shot mostly exposed according to the clouds here in this area. And if I do a basic processing here, I could, of course, bring down the highlight even a bit more to get a little bit more details here in the cloud area, and then pull up the shadows as far as I can, like that. Maybe a little bit in the exposure, but here you can see that the whites here in the clouds are already clipping, so I can't go any further. That's the about the result I have to accept in RapidRAW. If we go, okay, that was the 357. If we go here in Lightroom 57, that's that one. Go to development and go to bring down the highlights even more. You can see the effect. That's a lot more than what you could see here in RapidRAW. And if I just open up the shadows, just all the way up, there you can see that there's a lot more range in those shadows and far highlights than compared to what you get in RapidRAW. That might be a thing concerning the Lumix RAW images, I don't know, but I think that is not what I could expect in a RAW converter, RAW image processing. I want full range of dark and light areas in this, and that is this thing where the author has still to improve the app. As you could see, the basic of the RAW development in RapidRAW is pretty good, and the app is continuously developed by the guy. I think it's settles in Switzerland, as far as I know. And on his blog, he posted that he will try to post every 2 weeks a new version of the app with certain new features, bug fixes, and so on. So the main difference, like collections or changing the app language or so on, are pretty good. The issue I had was with the Lumix S9 files, as I told you already, with the Panorama setting. Then the MacBook Pro totally crashed. It just tried to get more and more memory, even eat up the swap memory and so on. And then I didn't had any other chance than rebooting the MacBook Pro. But the other things like masking and so on already works pretty good, even though the masking isn't perfect. But let's see, that wasn't like that was the same with Lightroom in the beginning of the masking, like sky masking and so on, as we could see right now. The only two problems I had, the first one, as I showed you, that the same RAW file is much darker in RapidRAW without any processing compared to Lightroom. That's sort of acceptable because those apps only give you an interpretation of the contents of the RAW file, so you might have differences between the different RAW converters if you compare it like with Lightroom DxO or any other RAW converter on the market. What was too bad was that in extreme situation where you need the full potential of a RAW image, meaning from the highlights to the deepest shadows, that wasn't able to use that or utilize those capabilities which are in a RAW. That was too bad, and I think that is where the author of the program has to fix it. Maybe it's due to my Lumix RAW images, I don't know, but that isn't acceptable at all. When I use a RAW image, I want to have the full potential in terms of dynamic range from the highest highlights to the darkest shadow, if you want to say. But I think that the app in total is on a good way. Okay, but after a year, it's still not a Lightroom clone, okay, but it's a pretty good RAW converter, and if you consider it's free to use, it's available for all major operating systems like Windows, Linux, and macOS, of course. It might be a good starting point if you start with RAW photography. Then you can decide if you stick with the program or maybe switch to a more mature program like Lightroom. Okay, that was my little review on RapidRAW after almost a year of development. And if you have any questions to this, you might as well place them in the comments to this video, or you comment on the comment section on the corresponding blog post. And if this video was a little bit helpful to you, you might consider placing a like on the video, but I surely would appreciate if you subscribe my channel. But then don't forget to hit the bell so you got a notification every time I upload a new video. Okay, that was all for today, and I have to say till the next time, ciao, Tux Oche.